revolution. The world needs to have our back.
Feminists all around the world, now they're all in silence.
Why? Why is this the case?
They're scared of Islamic power and what it can do to the West. And they have every right to be scared of these people.
In Islamic rules, women are half of the men. People are sick of that. Sick of all the lies.
All we want, freedom of the women, freedom of speech, freedom of our people from our country.
To the feminists out there, you can't pick and choose between women. Woman is still woman.
Whether they're in Australia, whether they're in Iran. Let's say there was someone here from the Iranian government who said they were for forced hijab because it promotes modesty. What would you say to that person? Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to another episode of Common Ground Conversations, where we ask the important but controversial questions and then try to find common ground. In today's episode, we're here at Parliament in Victoria, Melbourne. We're going to be asking people the question, forced hijab, for or against, and using that question as a portal into unpacking what is going on in Iran following Mahsa Amini's recent death. Let's see what people have to say.
Alright, ladies and gentlemen, a quick download before we dive into today's episode. Firstly, do not take my word for anything. I encourage you to do your own research, but here is my read on the situation so far in Iran. Mahsa Amini, 22 years old, recently died in the custody of Iran's morality police following an arrest for not wearing her hijab in accordance with government guidelines. The police claimed that whilst in their custody, she had a heart attack, fell, and died after 2 days in a coma. Meanwhile, eyewitnesses and women who were detained with Amini claimed that she was beaten to death by the police whilst in their custody. And this seems to be corroborated by some leaked medical scans that indicate brain bleeding and stroke as her cause of death. Following all of this, protests have erupted across the country as well as around the globe, including in my home country, Australia, as you'll see in today's episode. Now, initially, when I heard of all this, I thought the Iranian people were, at essence, taking a stand against police brutality and forced hijabs, which they are, but it runs deeper. The forced hijab and Mahsa's death are symbolic of a deeper problem. An authoritarian regime's heavy-handed ruling over a people who want their freedom and are ready to fight for it. Mahsa's death seems to have been the spark that ignites the flame, galvanizing the Iranian people into collective action. Now, my position on the question of the day, as a libertarian, which means I believe in maximizing individual liberties, I'm adamantly against forced hijab and believe it should be a woman's choice as to whether or not she wears one. A few additional points, though, that I brought with me on the day that I wanted to ask people included: what's the goal of the protest exactly? What should the average Westerner do in response to what's going on? What should Western governments like that of Australia do in response to what's going on? 5 to 10 years down the track, what will Iran look like if the people of Iran have their way with current leadership? And what would you say to someone who is pro-forced hijab, say in the name of women's safety or modesty? With all of that said, if you think I've missed anything, I invite you to drop a comment on the video with any relevant links or simply share your take on the situation. And a quick public service announcement also, we've been banned on TikTok recently, but sit tight, we will be back. And finally, I hope you enjoyed today's episode. Drop a like on the video if you do. And now let's dive into conversation number 1 of the day with some of the women attending the protest. Enjoy.
We want a revolution because Iranian people are fed up, and we want something different from.
So to people who aren't familiar with what's going on in Iran, what are they fed up with exactly?
They are fed up with forcing Islam to us because most of us are not even real Muslims, and we don't want to wear hijab. We want it to be a choice for the people who want to wear it, but we don't want to wear it in our country. We ran away from that country because for 40 years they oppressed women, and they want to just force their religion and everything with it to people from Iran. And
yes.
We don't want to accept it anymore.
So,
we are fed up.
Yeah, my understanding is that Iran is a member of the UN, and under the UN human rights, I'm not sure if it's a Bill of Rights or whatnot, but you're supposed to have freedom of religion. Whereas this, it seems, as far as I'm aware, that the Iranian government currently in power is enforcing religion.
No, people don't want any fair religion.
Yeah.
She just wants freedom. Just wants freedom in Iran.
Yes.
We don't have any freedom.
We want to have freedom of choice. They say in the media we give this freedom to people, but it's all lies. They are killing people. As of today, they killed about 180 people who were protesting in the street, just wanting freedom.
And this isn't the first protest as well. I've heard of other ones. 4 years ago, there were thousands of people killed.
1,500 people were killed by these people who are saying that we are in support of human rights. We are in support of freedom. They are lying in media.
Now, what would you say to, let's say, for example, there was someone here from the Iranian government who said that they were for forced hijab because it promotes modesty or something like this amongst women, what would you say to that person?
We would say that we want freedom of choice. If it promotes modesty, keep it for your family. Keep it for the people who are close to you. We don't want that for us.
Yeah,
We
okay.
want freedom of
It's still choice.
That's it.
Okay, so if you want to be modest, you can be modest, you can wear your hijab. But for me, I want my choice to...
Exactly.
Okay. Now, what do you want, say for example, the regular Australian, how does the regular Australian contribute to what you're doing here? What is it that you're hoping to accomplish?
I think they have to share this issue as much as possible because remember, it's been happening for 40 years. And now it's a time that the media is catching it. It hasn't been catching it for years and years. I want them to share it as much as possible, but also I want the politicians to come and talk about it. I want the NATO to come together and make sure that Iran faces the consequences of what they're doing to its people.
Right, yeah, I'm trying to make sense of this myself, and I've heard people say, okay, we want the public, the Australian public, and perhaps the public overseas as well, to raise awareness, amplify the voices. But I've also heard calls for governments, say for example the Australian government, to denounce what the Iranian government is doing in terms of its authoritarian behaviours. And then beyond that as well, I've heard for a call for the UN to do an independent investigation and to hold the Iranian government accountable for human rights.
Yeah. And you need to know about this. The same government want nuclear power. This is so dangerous for people around the world, okay? They want more power every day. And this is not healthy for Middle East, for people around the world. This revolution needs to happen and the world needs to have our back because it is dangerous for Islamic Republic government to get power for the whole world.
Now, something I've seen some signs tonight that have said something like, if you're a feminist, you will speak out against the Iranian government,
Exactly.
and if you remain silent now, you're not really a feminist.
Exactly. You can't
Something I'm curious about is why do you think that people are more quiet about what's going on in Iran? Is it just that they're not familiar with it, or is it that some people are perhaps afraid of speaking out against Islam?
A bit of both, because they're scared of Islamic power and what it can do to the West. And they have every right to be scared of these people. They are ruining people's lives in Middle East. And trust me, if they get more power, it is so dangerous for everyone around the world. They are scared of speaking up, and also they're fed up with the Middle East, I think, because it's been happening over years and years, and like they don't want to, they're not interested anymore. And also to the feminists out there, my message to you is you can't pick and choose between women. Woman is still woman.
Yeah.
Anyone.
Whether they're in Australia, whether they're in Iran,
Exactly.
they're still a woman. Still a woman.
You
Yes.
can't pick and choose, and just
Freedom
you know,
for women.
go and do advocacy for our freedom because we are the voiceless. We need it the most.
Yeah. Hey, thank you so much for taking the time. I appreciate it.
Thank you for
Have a lovely night. Take care.
I'm one of the organizers here, and we are here today for the death of Mahsa Amini in Iran, 22 years old girl who was brutally killed by the morality police. We are
And
here.
for someone who doesn't know what the morality police are, how would you describe them?
It is in Iran. There are police that they're telling you that what to wear, what to do, because you are a woman. That's why and Mahsa wasn't wearing a scarf properly the way that they wanted to. The standard, they make it for you. And this has been happening for 44 years, and people are sick of hearing and seeing all of that. This is brutality. Now, more than 200 people were killed in Iran because of this brutality, and people are protesting, and the government cut off the internet, and now people, they don't have even access to the internet.
Yes. And when I was familiarizing myself with what was going on initially, as I'm sure many people will think, when they first familiarize themselves with the story, I thought it was just an issue to do with hijab. And the further that I went into it, I started to understand that there's much more going on, and that this is perhaps just the straw on the camel's back. So can you give people a little bit more context with regard to why this isn't just about hijab and why it's not just about Mahsa Amini, it's much larger?
Because the regime was trying to force women to stay at home, to don't have a voice. Regime, it's been doing that for more than 44 years to keep the women at home, do not go outside and cover their hair because they are in Islamic rules. They think that women are half of the men.
And
So that's all because of the rules. People are sick of that, sick of all the lies, corruptions and everything.
Yes.
That's why people, the government family members, they're all outside. They're all American, Australian citizens. And
this is something I've heard earlier today as well around there are double standards with regard
That's
to
exactly.
the people. Yeah, okay.
these
So
rules are all from people inside Iran, not their family members outside.
now I don't understand how Iran can be a UN nation and also have these double standards for men and women.
This is for us as well. This is the question we have to ask from the leaders, that why still the Iran is a part of UN
Yes.
because of that. Because they've never thought about Iranian women. They're always against the women.
Yes,
That's
and
all
so
the rules
I-
have been against the women.
I was, I'm trying to understand. Okay, what's the outcome that people want here? In hearing one of our senators speaking before,
Yes.
I've also heard that there's calls for a UN, independent UN investigation into what's going on in Iran.
Yes.
So as to what
That's
I guess
what we
hold
want.
them accountable for upholding human rights if they're going to be a part of the UN. I saw signs saying if you are silent now, you can't say that you're a feminist. Right? You can't
Yes,
say that
exactly.
you're...
No, that we do have feminists all around the world. Now they're all in silence. We don't know what's going
Now
on.
why? Why is this the case?
That is because people are scared to talk, probably, because they didn't think that women in Iran, they don't have a right to speak.
Do you think people are afraid of denouncing Islam or
I think
denouncing
so.
the
I think
regime?
so.
Okay.
I think so.
We all we want freedom of the woman, freedom of speech, and freedom of our people from our country, and choice of dressing and the way we want to dress. Okay, we don't want to be forced by anything.
Yes.
Or anyone or any religion.
I imagine most people in Australia are also pro-democracy, right? They want the people to be empowered. Now, for someone who says what's going on in Iran, Australia shouldn't intervene, what
That's
would you
wrong.
say? Okay, what would you
Okay.
say to that person?
That's wrong. Okay. Lots of Iranian, they live in Australia because of the situation happening in Iran.
Yes.
Okay? Because Iranian intervene in the people's life. Iranian government intervene in people's life.
A friend of mine said it's useful to think not that the Iranian government is the same as the Iranian people, right?
Yes,
they
it's
can
not
have
the same.
they can
It's
have
not the same.
Yes.
Okay. What Iranian government wants, Iranian people doesn't want.
What do you think so let's say the average Australian, what would you like for them to do? And then also, what do you think the Australian government should do?
Only thing I like at the moment Australian government can do is put a pressure on Iranian government. Okay, call Iranian ambassador in Australia to come to and explain about what's going on in Iran. Okay, that's the right of people to know
Right.
why they do this to us.
Right.
Okay, why they do this to Iranian. Yeah.
Okay, yeah, lovely. Hey, thanks so much for taking the time, brother. I appreciate it.
Ladies and gentlemen, that is a wrap for today's episode. If you appreciate what we're doing here, you believe in the mission of asking the important but controversial questions, then trying to find common ground, you can support us in 3 main ways. 1, by liking the video and subscribing to the channel. 2, by following us on our other platforms. Hit us up on Insta if you want to connect a little more personally, or if you have some suggestions or requests for future questions. And 3, by keeping the dialogue flowing in your own life. With all of that said, take care of yourselves. Till I see you in the next episode. Godspeed.